This podcast is brought to you by Infinite Resources, a local staffing agency connecting diverse job candidates in central Iowa companies.
Amplified.
Welcome back to Black and Privileged in America podcast, power, love, and money conversations relevant to Black people and for Black thriving. I'm your host, Abena. Catch Black and Privileged in America podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts, on Amplified DSM YouTube channel and at amplifydsm.com, and also check out our social media platforms. Today, we are welcoming MaxwellSchaeffer, a revered voice and a jewel of Iowa talk radio. Maxwell has so much experience that it's going to be really hard for me to try to sum him up, so I'm not even going to try. But I can tell you that he's done radio for so long, and he is amazing. And he is also a member of the Iowa Rock and Roll Hall of what? Fame. And so, Maxwell, welcome to the show.
It is such an honor to be here with you, Alvin. I can't tell you. We had a radio interview years ago, and it was where I first kind of got to know you. Wow. Think about the accomplishments you had in the last 3-4 years alone. I mean, I'm
I've done a couple
away.
things. Yeah, I've done a few things.
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm so happy you're here and really excited to talk with you. And I don't know, I think we can run the gamut today, if that's okay with you. I want to first acknowledge truly what an inspiration you are. You're the voice that wakes up Iowa. That's how we know you. You're the voice that wakes us up.
For a long time.
Yeah. So tell me about that.
Let's see. My wife, Karen, and I moved here in 1986 for a radio gig that I got. I started in radio back in 1982 full-time, but I had been working part-time in radio when I was in college, so I started doing that in 1979. Boy, it's a long time ago.
I won't tell my age, but yeah.
We were still playing vinyl. I mean, the very first radio station I worked on, we had disco sweeps.
Ooh.
So quarter after the hour, quarter till the hour, we would beat mix disco vinyl, two songs. And I learned how to beat mix early on, which was a fantastic skill to have when you're out doing dances, with your sound equipment at high schools and stuff, early DJ skills. So I love that. When I was young, I had a lot of those skills. It's changed a lot now. I haven't DJed in a long time, but
I can imagine you with the headset on and maybe scratching records. I don't know. I can see that.
I learned how to scratch. I mean, this sounds crazy, but 1979, 1980, I was all over that stuff. So.
Oh man, I hope there's video somewhere. We got to find the video.
Boy.
So lately, you had been on iHeartRadio.
I was.
And
I was
one
over
morning
there for about 5 years.
For 5 years, how was that?
I enjoyed the work. I enjoyed the people. I did quite a number of different things over there. Started out as the marketing director because I was let go from a previous radio station, and so I thought at that point 5-6 years ago that my radio career might be over, and so let's try different things. But then a very special person over there really wanted to try to get me in the building, and they had that job, so it's something I could do, and basically had done in my radio incarnations over the years. So I was very excited to have that. Worked my way in on the air and did that for about 5 years.
So that chapter is closed now.
That is closed. Yep.
I'm curious to know what your initial reaction was when you learned that chapter was coming to an end. Like, what did you feel? Because this is a thing. This is something that you've done every morning for a really long time. So what was your reaction to that?
That's a really, really great question. I'm still in that reactive mode. I would say that I've never pinned who I am on what I do.
Oh, that's a great principle.
There are a lot of people that would have told me over the years, "Oh, you'll be able to do this till your brain and your mouth don't work," And I'd like to think that, but I also understand the business. I understand, how things land and how things work, and so I always felt privileged to be able to do it as much. And there are times later in my life here as I enter into my 60s where I'm like, they still let me do this. They still let me do this. So to me, gratitude has always been an important part of my psyche. So when it's gone, it's not who I am. It's just something I did. So, yeah. So I'm not saying there aren't hard days. And anybody that goes through this, you know, a long career, and suddenly you're thinking that's probably maybe it's over. You're going to have bad days, but part of what I did was to drag my butt out of bed at 3:15 in the morning.
Oh man, hold on, wait a minute.
And open a microphone at 5 a.m.
3:15?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Open a microphone at 5 in the morning and try to be positive. And because that was my responsibility, was to find that part of myself that could make people get up in the morning, get into their routine, maybe make them laugh, make them think a little bit, boom. And that was my job. And so being forced to do that, because to be honest with you, Abena, this is not my I can stay up late, and I love to sleep in, and I am grumpy in the morning like everybody else. But to force myself, that better part of me, to come out for all those years has kind of helped me in this transition in my life to have better days, more better days than worse days. So if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. I feel like you're such a stand-up guy. Listen, Max, I had a 6 a.m. Zoom meeting this morning, and I didn't get out of bed till 5:50. So I'm looking at you like you are my friggin' hero.
Well, for now, those days are over. Now, I had a voiceover session this morning at 8:30. And I got into that. I'm like, ooh, my voice is not very good today.
It's a little Barry White-ish right there.
You're right, yes.
Barry White.
So the producer's like, let's just talk for a while, and maybe you'll get the dust out. And that's how it usually works. And
I think it's incredible that you use gratitude as a way to navigate this time. Can you go a little deeper and tell me, like, what does that look like? Is it reflective? Is it writing it down? Is it communicating to people? What is that for you?
Somewhere along the way, I learned from someone or something that I read that it's a scientific, psychological fact that you can't suffer anxiety in a state of gratitude. You can't be grateful and live in a moment of gratitude and have anxiety, because your mind is not capable of those two things intermingling. And so that was my shining wake-up moment about what I did for a living. Is I couldn't be anxious or grumpy or have a bad attitude. I had to be positive. So, and that's just been my nature, I think, since as a child, but I try to look at the sunny side of things, as hard as it is. Sometimes people peg me as being a nice guy and too nice or too kind. But to be honest with you, I do have that dark side, and it will show when it's appropriate, and that's to protect me or protect my family. Or
for sure. I mean, I would say that, I see you as a really good guy, but I think we all have that other side that, don't wake up the giant. Right. I have that too. I probably wear mine more on the surface, though.
Well, I as a public figure, you learn, don't you, that there are certain controls that you have to keep in place because times change. The average person doesn't get up and do a podcast and isn't out doing, like you, doing TED Talks. And, like me being on the radio, the average person doesn't have that. So they can live a little bit more viscerally. We have to be way more careful.
Yeah.
Than they do.
So true. So as someone who's had a successful radio career, I would imagine that now you're a man betting on himself. And is that something that you've always done, or what does that mean to you right now to bet on yourself at this point in life?
Yeah, when two things happen to me that are profound. I was let go from a radio position where, by all accounts, seemed to be very successful. Things were working out really well. Was let go for no reason other than perhaps, and I can only surmise, a business reason. And I'm 65 years old.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
You look good.
Oh, well, you're very kind. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm 65 years old, so there are two things at play there. There's the end of a career, perhaps. I don't know. As far as broadcasting or radio goes, and then sort of this realization that there aren't many opportunities in that arena for me at my age.
And the industry's changing.
And the industry is changing.
Yeah.
However, there are other ways in audio platforms that I can create, and there's a great release in knowing that I don't have somebody kind of telling me what my content should be. It can be anything I want it to be. It may not necessarily pay the bills, but there is a certain excitement that I have for that. My thing is, having worked in the radio world, I have to fight the urge to want to kind of control what that sounds like and just go with it. And so I'm kind of learning, you know what? I have these great ideas for content, audio platform content. I'm going to start doing it at some point here in the next month or two.
Yay.
And start diving in.
You heard it here.
And see what I could do. Well, and you inspire me. I mean, obviously.
Oh, wow. Are you kidding? I inspire you?
Of course you do. Your story.
This is a moment, ladies and gentlemen, that I'm inspiring the legend, Max Shaeffer. What?
Look, maybe I'm a legend in my own mind, but I do know that I've worked hard at it for a long time, and so there's a certain investment that you make, and so there is a value to that for something, for someone. So whether it's just hearing my voice, a familiar voice, or whatever I bring to the content that is interesting and fascinating, I hope I can still do that as long as I want, as long as my mouth and my brain work together. So yeah, there are things I'm going to do. I have some plans. There are people I want to help. For me, being on the radio has always been, I've tried to look at it as a service to someone, as opposed to, look, I'm a big radio star.
Yeah.
You know, maybe when I was young, I felt that, but that changed somewhere along the way. So what can I do that can be of service to someone with the skills, the creative skills, or whatever I possess? So the age thing and the maybe end of a career thing, that could be very brutal for some people. In fact, I brought a book that I'm reading. Can I share?
Absolutely. We love books
right.
around here. That's our thing.
So this is actually, I do attend counseling on occasion. It's very important, and I highly recommend it.
That's awesome.
And
I'm glad you shared that, because
yes.
Counseling, therapy, that kind of thing, I found for men, it could be a tough realization that it may be a beneficial process to undertake. And it's kind of taboo for Black men. So I'm glad to hear that a man is saying, I do this.
Look, my counselor is a man.
Awesome.
We've had these conversations. He probably wants to see me more than I go, because I do fight it. There's that man in me that says, I want to figure out my way through this. But my wife and I have had marriage counseling in an important part of our marriage. We needed to do it. It was very important and eye-opening. So he recommended this book. It's called From Strength to Strength, Arthur Brooks.
Can I hold it up here?
Absolutely.
From Strength to
You can see my
Strength.
markers in there.
I see you're getting down to business with this book.
So this is a book about, particularly more so aimed at sort of those workaholics in their career who get to a point where maybe their resume skills have diminished, or something dramatic happens to them, and suddenly that's over. And they've pinned their whole life, all the sacrifices they made and everything, on that career. Doesn't necessarily define me, but there are some valuable tools for me in there. But I would recommend any man in particular, and woman, that's going through a career change or a point where suddenly their value in what they did is no longer important, and they realize, I pinned my whole value to what I do, not who I am. And so it's a nice transition. I thought it was a really great book.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Max. I mean, I think I've just lost
Yeah.
your spot there.
I use business cards to put. That's all right.
I use receipts, so we're good.
This way I also remember, I need to call that guy.
Right. So I'm really intrigued by the understanding how to transfer value from what you do to who you are. I think that's important. It seems also that it requires a certain amount of risk taking to do that. What you're talking about is risky, even if it's just to oneself. What do you say? What are your thoughts on taking a risk?
I've had people ask me if I'm risk averse because I tend to process things. If somebody presents an idea to me that they think I should do, I don't immediately typically dive into it. I like to process it, think about how I might approach it, because I want whatever I contribute to, I want it to be a quality contribution. So, but before I met my wife, I took a lot of risks. We all did in our youth.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We didn't,
I could tell you some stories about risks that I've taken.
Right.
That were downright dangerous in my youth,
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so in my career, my youthful thoughts were, even though I was working radio in college, I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a musician. And so I dabbled and tried all those things. And then I met my current wife, and we're coming up on our 40th wedding anniversary.
Oh, and your wife is lovely, by the way, Karen. She is a lovely human.
Well, if we have a moment, I'd love to share my feelings about her. But when I met her, something changed in me, and actually it was a risk-averse type of anxiety, because I felt responsible to this person who I now brought into my life, whether it was to provide, whether it was to support, to be there, and not just be carefree and careless. But I think everyone needs to be carefree and careless at some point. But I also think later in your life, if you have a little financial help, whether it's Social Security or whatever that you've invested in your whole life, to be able to be carefree and careless again and try to do things. And I also believe in the instances where I've been faced with losing a job or a shift in my career in some way, shape, or form, my fears were always ridiculous, because the next thing that happened was always way better for me. So I'm very fortunate that way. And it doesn't always work that way for people, but sometimes it takes longer. But then you always realize, wait a minute, this probably happened for a reason, part of a grand plan, God's plan, whatever, however you ascribe it. So anyway, so this book was very important to me. One of the reasons why I'm impressed with you is because I've always been impressed and highly respect people that put the work in to discover who they really are and then learn how to flourish in that. To me, and it doesn't matter what part of your life you do it in. Some people wait till later. Some people can't do it till later. Some people don't discover something that they have an ability till later in life. My wife is one of those. She wrote a play at 49 years old. A play. She had never written a play in her life. She had never written dialogue in any kind of form or anything like that. She's an avid reader, has done theater. We met in the theater, almost more than 40 years ago. And so all of that information that she brought in and experience enabled her to come up with an idea for a play and then write it and then work at it and develop it and perfect it. And then by virtue of people she knew and connections and good luck, she ended up getting it produced and then published. And now she has 3 plays published, and she's written another dozen more. That
Go Karen.
Yeah. And so all of this in the last 10 years. So to me, I'm like, last night her play opened in Ireland.
Are you what? Ireland. Okay.
In a theater
this is amazing.
Little Ballybofey, Ireland, the northern part of Ireland. It opened last night, and I'm sitting on the couch with her. I'm like, your play just opened in Ireland. And Kara's so cool. She's like, yeah, I heard it sold out. I'm like, it opened in Ireland. I mean,
she's
you
awesome.
Understand that. So
I mean, the two of you are quite a duo. I would say, hashtag goals for anybody looking to sustain love, right? You're a great example of that. I know that you're from Pennsylvania, and she's from Texas, and
Yes.
here you both are in Iowa. How did you learn? How did like you met in the middle, or what? What was that journey? I'm really interested in the love story of Max and
Oh,
Karen.
boy.
Give it to
How
us.
much time do we have
We
here?
got some time. We have time.
Yeah, I was that carefree, crazy spirit when I was young. Had worked in radio, graduated from college, went to study acting in Philadelphia, did a little of that, was a busker. I played guitar, street corners and in little bars and things like that, as a songwriter. And so there's a lot of things I wanted to do really with no mentors or super guidance. I was just throwing myself at life. And so I joined a little trio, and we got a job in Texas from Philadelphia. And we got in my buddy's car, and we drove down there.
What a ride that is. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what, 18 hours?
Oh, yeah, it's crazy. And
12 of that was probably
And it
in
was
Texas.
it was a square, boxy little Fiat, too,
Yeah.
with no air conditioning. And so we drove down there, but we were waiting to start the gig because it was in a series of pubs throughout the Southwest, and you would play 2 weeks in one, 2 weeks in another, 2 weeks in another, 2 weeks, and kind of move around. And so we were sitting, living in a Motel 6 in Houston, and the car caught on fire.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And we watched it burn down in an intersection. So he called my buddy's brother up, and because he had a car, he came down and joined the group. And then, but his girlfriend was missing him, and so he decided to leave the group before we even started. Then my friend's like, you know what, this probably isn't going to work out. I'm just going to go back to Pennsylvania. So I'm in a Motel 6 in Houston, Texas, with $50 in my pocket, thinking, what am I going to do, So I remembered I had a college girlfriend that was in television in Victoria, Texas, south of Houston. So I called her up and said, hey, I'm in Houston. Want me to come see you? And she's like, yeah. So I got on a bus and went down there, and that's the town where I kind of rekindled that relationship, but it wasn't very good, and I got a radio job.
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah. One thing led to another.
Right. Met my wife, got into the local theater scene down there, met my wife at an audition for a play and fell in love with her, and we got married there, and we went off to California for a little bit. We went off to Florida for a little bit, and then I had a job offer in Des Moines, Iowa, and we got in the car in 1986 and came up here, and we lived here ever since. So that's how that all landed. But there's the short story.
The love story. And you two are, like I said, you're quite the duo. And I'm amazed at marriages and relationships that last a really long time. I have an aunt who was married for 47 years. And so I've seen it. My mother married for a really long time. What are the secrets to a long marriage? I'm not saying a happy marriage, but what are the secrets? What do you do to keep it together?
I wish I had the playbook on that. We have great times. We had awful times. We raised 2 boys, but I think we both made a decision that we were going to make this partnership kind of work somehow, and that's what propelled us through. But there was also a love that, goes beyond the early stages, passion, romance, a friendship, a shared interest in things and a respect for each other. Hopefully, I was mostly respectful to her in her life and continue to be. And she had her struggles, I had my struggles, but somehow we've managed kind of with this idea that we're going to hold this together and we're going to raise these boys and we're going to be there and hopefully have grandchildren. And to me, being a grandfather is the greatest gift that has come from the investment that my wife and I have made together. To me, that, and you can probably relate to that.
Oh, I'm nodding rapidly
Yes.
because I do understand that grandchildren, it's a whole different level of love. It's love in a different way. Like for me, I love my kids, no doubt. They're amazing people. But when I saw that first little face, my grandson, I get choked up. My heart literally broke open and made room for him.
Do your kids do what my kids do? How come you didn't love us like you like you love them? I'm like, we loved you. Trust me, we loved you. We found that joy and the miracle of your life, but there's just something different about it. It is a special kind of love, and you only want the best for them. You only want, and you know the obstacles that they're going to face, but you're kind of resilient. You try to share your resilience with them, and hopefully that'll help. But yeah.
So in terms of resilience, how do you maintain your resilience and I guess your adaptability and your ability to be so transparent about your life and your journey?
You have to. I mean, what other choice do you have? I'm fortunate that I'm healthy for the most part. I'm fortunate that I still create. I spend a lot of time in my little basement studio as a never-known basement studio songwriter. I probably will take some time and get out with that. I won't herald it and make a big deal out of it. I would love to go to an open mic or maybe sit down and start playing my music for people again, because that's not something I've really done a lot from 28 till now,
Wow, that would be amazing to hear your music.
I would hope. And so part of me is that a service to somebody, but I think there are venues and places where you can go and do that, and people, you can share your story, tell your story, and tell your story about stuff that you write, songs and things like that. And I'm in the Iowa Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for my radio stuff, which is a fantastic honor.
Yay, because that was my next question is, how'd you end up with that? Like, what is that?
Somebody just nominated me. And look, again, I don't want to diminish that. I don't pin my life on I'm in the Iowa Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But there's sort of this family of musicians and radio people from the state that the history of some of these bands and the radio people, so to be a part of that is such a great honor. I
was talking to my guest last week, a gentleman named John Martin. He's a promoter, a marketing guru, just kind of an everything guy. And he was talking about Iowa being a place where, we're not a big coastal place. We're not Los Angeles or New York or Houston or Nashville. We're not that. So it's really hard for a musician and an artist to go to a radio station and be put on.
Absolutely.
Here.
And even,
so for
even
you,
worse now.
Yeah, it's worse now. Yeah. So to know that you're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it means to me like you're an ally of the music world. And I think that's pretty special. I
would love to develop, whether it's a performance space or a content space, digital content space for songwriters. And there are plenty of them. There are people that do that and highlight songwriters. The kind of house concert business is very popular in Iowa. To me, songwriting is a joy. So I would love to develop that. There's 20 million things I would love to do right now.
How do you have time or make time to do all that stuff?
And figure it out, and you probably feel the same way.
Yeah. And at first, for me, when I transitioned out of, traditional work into working my gifts and talents and passions, it was hard for me to focus on one thing.
It is. And,
it was.
And I don't know if you're this way, but I also procrastinate. And I process and try to think things through. But then I realize, like, some of my most favorite recording artists back in the day spent hours and weeks crafting one song. Nowadays, people sit down and pump out songs like instantaneously. But I had taken a bunch of songs to Nashville back in the late 90s. I had written 15 songs and demoed them, created demos, and I had connections in the record industry via my radio work, and so I got into front of A&R people. I brought a bunch of songs down there to Nashville, and every one of them said, "This is good stuff. You need to move here." And at the time, my wife, this would be the late 80s, sorry. My wife was pregnant. And I had a half-decent radio job, and I had bills, and I thought, I can't make that sacrifice. I can't just, for me, pick up all that and throw it to the wind. So I said, why can't I write songs in Iowa and send them to you or collaborate in that way? And he's like, oh, no, this is Nashville. You got to live here. It's the family. And I understood that, and I totally was cool with that. And I said, I can still write songs, do whatever I want to do with it. I can still be creative. But I can't uplift my roots right now and make that choice. That's why I love Iowa. There's so many creative people have chosen to kind of plant roots here, and it's okay to do that. It's the business thing and the luck thing and all the stuff that happens on the coasts and in the recording industry or writing or anything like that. You can do it now from Iowa as opposed to 20, 30, 40 years ago where you kind of had to be in those places. I think you can do it from Iowa now. So
that's important for people to hear. I really think that's an important notion to hear and to understand and even grapple with for everyone that is in Iowa struggling to figure out what they want to do and how to find their place. You've mentioned a phrase twice, and I want to ask you about it. You've mentioned luck twice. You believe in luck?
I believe in having an awareness for opportunity. The opportunity thing is the luck part. So if in today alone, I could probably see 6 or 7 opportunities. So those being presented to you, that's the luck part. So it's whether you choose to seize them or not, whether you overcome the worst side of yourself, the fear, the anxiety, nobody's going to be interested in this, so I'm not going to take advantage of that. That's the hardest part for creative individuals to do.
True story.
And so I recognize that in myself. I was presented with an opportunity to audition for some TV commercial, and I have time now to go do things like that because I couldn't on the radio before. If there was a shoot in Omaha or you had to get up and do a morning thing, I couldn't do it. So this comes across, this opportunity, and there's that part of me. It's like, oh, they'll never pick me. Why would they pick me? But it says it's a guy 60 to 70 years old. So, maybe you know what? You just sit down and you make the demo and you send it out. And then if somebody recognizes your talent, then that's also the luck part of it. But you have to do the work. So as I look at my wife, I look at you, people that I respect and who have worked hard, put the work in, put the effort in. All you can do is that. The luck is somebody's going to recognize that or an opportunity is going to come up where that fits. And you pray that will happen, but never expect it, because once you start expecting it, you're only living to find that, and you stop creating. Does that make sense?
It does. It sounds like you're telling us another good principle, which is to manage expectation.
Absolutely. That's the great way to put it. Absolutely. Don't expect anything. I never expected to work 40 years on the radio. You hear people like Mick Jagger, the Rolling Stones go, if somebody had told me I'd be 80 years old out there doing a live concert, you're crazy. Don't expect any of it, but put the work in and continue to create and find your authentic self and put it out there. And something may end up happening for you that you can't even imagine. And if nothing grand happens, you still are humble in your spirit, and you have that to hold on to, and your grandchildren will witness that. So I wrote a song with my grandchild Marta's name in it, in a little song sort of about her. And every time we get in the car, she just wants to hear it over and over and over again. To me, success.
Yeah, you have arrived.
I sold 1 million records right there, that little girl in the back seat of the booster seat, So
I feel the same way about my children's book. It was inspired by my grandboys. And so I don't care how many people buy the book, who says good job. They love it. I'm good.
Isn't that the best?
It is.
You're a bestseller as a result of that, in my opinion.
Thank you. And ditto.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
What are you most proud of?
Proud of my marriage, proud of my kids. Fortunately, thank God, they're doing okay. You never know. Again, expectations. You do the best you can, and you hope everything's going to land okay for them. I'm proud of making a choice to invest in this community. Whether that's remembered doesn't matter. Whether I can continue to have an impact that way. Doesn't matter. I've had it, so I'm proud of that work. Pride for me is a scary business because when you start to get too proud, that brings out parts of you that don't feel comfortable to me. So pride to me is kind of a scary thing. I prefer not to kind of dive into that world. Being proud, pride used to be kind of a really negative thing. I mean, you go back to biblical times, you know.
Yeah.
It's an avarice. Now it's something, proud of my kids, proud of, and we use it in a very positive way, but that sort of personal pride that comes from a place of your attachment to yourself, to me, is a dangerous thing. So I try not to live in that moment and think about it. But when people say, I'm really proud of the work you've done, I appreciate that as a positive. I do. So,
well, I can say that I made a commitment to myself to be sure to remember people and their contributions and how special people are. For the time that we live in, I think it's important to recognize greatness. And I sit here across from you, and whether you receive it or not, I'm telling you, MaxwellSchaeffer, you are great.
Well, I will tell you that what I appreciate about you is you're willing to have a dialogue with very diverse opinions in a safe space. It's like I always say, I may not agree with you, but my relationship with you is more important than changing your mind. And maybe what I say or what my opinion, maybe that will shape your views. If it does, great. If not, we still have a great relationship. That's what I love about you. And we need more of that in this world today. I think anyone will agree. I have very strong opinions about certain things. I'm not vociferous about them. I'm not visceral with them. They're my opinions. It's not important for me to impose them on someone. So I'd much rather have the relationship get to understand, because I have a natural curiosity for human beings. So to me, I love to hear crazy, diverse opinions as long as it's an acceptable agreement, that we're not going to try to change each other's minds. What I love about you is that's what you do. And so it's kind of fun talking with you. And then years ago when I brought you to the radio show, because all of a sudden I found this new person. I'm so curious about them. So it's been fun to follow what you do. I did bring you a book, by the way.
Oh, thank you. And I want to just say, when you interviewed me those years ago, I was just launching my literacy initiative, which has become like this big, huge machine. And
congratulations.
Thank you. It's wonderful. It's the most fulfilling thing. And just this morning before our conversation, I was in community with a bunch of middle schoolers doing creative writing with them. So
fantastic.
I appreciate you giving me a platform to share what I was hoping to do, and it actually manifested. So that's great. Thank you.
I brought you a book because my wife.
Gifts. We love gifts.
My wife was her play was being produced in Detroit, and so we were like, it's only an 8-hour drive. Let's get in the car and go see it, And then it ended up they kind of wanted her to come anyway because, when an author shows up, a playwright shows up, it's a big deal. And so they, she did talkbacks and things like that. So it was really a blast. But we were in Detroit, and I grew up 5, 6, 7 years old listening to Motown records at my friend Steve's house, and I became just like a Motown fanatic at that age. And so I got to go to Motown.
That's awesome.
I have this book on my Kindle, but they give you this book when you go visit the Motown Museum and the Cathedral Studio A.
Oh, wow.
Which I highly advise, if anybody loves Motown music, to be standing in that space where all those songs were created. Oh my gosh, it's a church, in my opinion. But anyway, book called To Be Loved by Berry Gordy. It's his memoirs. And they give this to you when you go toward the museum, okay? And I already had it on my Kindle and have read most of it already before I went. So he's got a fascinating story about business, about his family, his inspirations, the choices he made in his career with, developing, creating Motown records, and think about all the artists he's influenced. And he's a man who had very strong opinions about things, but he opened up his platform for people that had different opinions because he knew that dialogue and opinions were important, and I find that absolutely fascinating about him. But there's so much about him that's fascinating. I hope you get a chance to read that.
I will make time because, number one, I love books. I have quite the collection myself, and I'm honored to receive this from you. Thank you so much, Max. Wow, I'm a little speechless. But
great book.
That being said, I have something for you too.
What?
Yes. It is a book called
Gifts.
Yes, Gifts for sure. Think Again by Adam Grant.
Okay.
This book I haven't read it, but I've heard that it is a transformative read, and I feel like you would really appreciate.
What's its focus?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Think again.
The power. No, let me just read
it's much like From Strength to Strength. It sounds to me like change. You still have the ability to change your thoughts, or
you do.
Right.
And I teach a class about understanding the extent to which we don't know what we don't know. And the focus of this book is the power of knowing what you don't know. So I say to you, my friend, the best is yet to come. The best is yet to come.
You rock. Thank you so much.
We rock together. I appreciate you so much for being here. And yeah, I mean, I can't wait to see what you do next.
I can't wait either. I don't even know quite what that is yet, but I'm working on it.
Well, we'll keep an eye out. And when you get ready to release your music or share your music, please let me know, because I certainly want to be in the audience and support.
Well, thank you. I will you'll be the first I will tell.
Hey, thank you. What a conversation. Big thanks to MaxwellSchaeffer for joining me on this episode of Black and Privileged in America podcast. Max reminds me that come what may, bend with the wind, but don't break. Stay engaged, stay curious, keep striving. Thanks for listening. Until next time.